how you're doing. I hope you're all doing well. Let's just ignore the fact my top does need ironing, okay? Let's just be impressed. I have shorts on and not pajama bottoms. This is a rare occurrence for me in videos. Today, there are millions of coloring books in the world for practically every single age, but that did not used to be the case. They used to just be aimed at kids because people are like, why do adults want to color in coloring pages? But today I am headed back in time to find the first coloring book ever made. Turns out the very first coloring book was actually released before crayons existed. The first real crayons were actually released by Binney and Smith in 1903, who, if you don't know, ended up turning into Crayola a few years later. Now, it turns out the very first coloring book to exist was the Little Folks Painting Book in the 1880s. This is a whopping 20 years before crayons existed. Now, the illustrations were by an illustrator called Kate Greenaway. So this company actually made coloring books for the next 40 years before turning into Milton Bradley, who later were absorbed by Hasbro. And Hasbro, being the company we all know make the game that families love to argue over, Monopoly. Now, this was aimed towards children, but of course crayons didn't exist yet, so it was called a painting book because watercolors were more easily accessible at this point. Coloring pencils were sort of a thing, but not really just yet. They did exist, but they weren't heavily marketed towards children. Stettler, who we know as creators of art supplies today, actually did offer coloring pencils in the mid-1800s. Now, from my research, it feels like all of these companies didn't quite realize that kids actually like to make art until the late 1800s. So, the Little Folks Painting Book. Where do we find it? Well, good old eBay. That was my first place to look. And it's 140 years old. You know, trying to find a pristine book that's 140 years old, probably not gonna happen. Quick search of eBay pretty much yields just nothing. I mean, they had some similar, but it wasn't the first one. And the 1900s were basically just an explosion of kids coloring books until Miss Queen Joanna Basford came along in the 2010s and was like, no, I'm gonna make coloring books for adults mainstream. And she's paved the pathway for the likes of me to create the book that I've created that's coming out in December. In fact, Queen Joanna Basford actually did a really nice write-up for my book here. If you want to check it out, I'm gonna link it in the description. Luckily for me, I am resourceful and an artist with an iPad. I'm gonna choose a few images and remake and fix some of these images in order to then print and colour in. So I'm going to use my trusty Epson printer for this, and Epson are kindly sponsoring this video today, so I'm really excited to show you how awesome this printer is. So there is an internet archive, which is really nice, archive.org, and they basically uploaded the copy that they could best find of this book. Apparently it's 2 copies bound together. It's not even like a copyright date on this thing. Obviously, usually when someone's done an illustration or artwork, it goes into the public domain like 95 years after their death. So obviously Kate Greenaway, she passed away in 1901, which means that this should all be in the public domain now. But yes, as you go through this book, this is the original. So I think this book I found on Amazon is actually like a direct copy and paste and put into like a physical book from the archive here. I think it's like a self-published on Amazon one. The Little Folks Painting Book, a series of outline engravings for watercolor painting. And it's basically a complete recreation of that very first coloring book. The only issue is they're clearly scans of already colored in pages, so it's all very grey, and I'm not going to be able to use any of these. These ones are just like, as you can see, colored in. Beautiful, very old illustrations. I'm going to go ahead and take some screenshots though of certain images that I like, because I'm going to airdrop them to myself. But yeah, all of these are so cute. I love how you can see like the pencil marks. I feel like these are so creepy though. Some of them are very, very creepy. Like this woman, she's kind of scaring me a little bit. This page was well loved. Very well loved. And then what is that thing? The cat and the carrot. So we've got a talking carrot there. This one's really cute too. Let's take a screenshot of this one. I will leave a digital download to the images that I fix if you want to print them out yourself. In the days of my youth, Father William replied, I was headstrong and would have my way. But now I am old, I have humbled my pride and have learnt when 'tis best to obey. A little creepy. Okay, so here is the illustration. As you can see, it's very pixelated. This is just a literal screenshot. And all I'm gonna do is make a new layer with a paintbrush, bring the opacity down, and then draw on the next layer. Something I noticed in a lot of these old colouring books too is that they have a lot of shading in them, which isn't something you usually see in colouring books today because it just makes it harder to actually colour it in. So I'm trying to add a lot of the old charm into this by adding a lot of these lines back in. Obviously mine is not going to be exact because mine's done digitally. This one was obviously done with pencil because digital didn't exist then. Currently doing a test print before I'm done with the Epsom ET8550. I absolutely love Epsom Eco Tanks. I already own one. Let me change your life if you've never seen an Epsom Eco Tank before. So instead of using those big clunky cartridges that you can't even see how much ink is inside, the Epsom Eco Tank allows you to physically put the ink in yourself with these. And this is by far the easiest printer I've ever used. And I love that I can actually see where my ink is going. There is no mess, no stress, and the quality is just amazing. I actually just printed one of our wedding photos as well. And yes, before you ask, I have the photography release from the actual photographers. But look at the quality of that photo. I'm blown away. Another thing I love about this printer is that I can actually print from my iPad or my phone. So the quality and the size is exactly what I was wanting for this page. Obviously, it's not done. So far, I'm really happy with the size, quality, and the resolution of this. So if you want to check out Epsom's line of eco tanks, I will leave a link in the description down below. And thank you so much to Epsom for sponsoring today's video and giving me some awesome colouring pages. So since my test print came out perfectly, I went ahead full steam with this to finish it. Also, I'm sure I'm going to get the comments that will miss the point of this video asking like, why don't you draw it freehand? Why are you tracing it? I could freehand it, yes, but then it won't be exact to the original. So this is an exact, well, I mean, it's blurry, so I'm trying my best. Replica of the original colouring page. I'm just fixing it. And something about illustrations in the late 1800s and early 1900s was that they really loved their scratchy lines for shading. Like when I first discovered this was an actual colouring page, I'll be honest, I didn't get it because it didn't really look like one. It literally just looked like a regular black and white illustration. But I think they just didn't really know fully how to do colouring pages yet, and I think that's the charm of it. Get this weird fish thing. I don't know what it is, but it's kind of cute. It's like a sock fish. Like, it looks like a sock. Some parts I literally just had to figure out for myself because it was so blurry, obviously. Like, what is this? Is that layers of the dress or shading or colour from what someone's put down already? It's just mush. And after lines, scratchy lines, squiggles, and a hand cramp, it finally started to look more like the original, which was great. So this was the before and the after. Kate Greenaway was a fantastic illustrator, seriously. Her art had a real charm to it, so I really hope that I did it justice. Printed it out and it's perfect. I cannot wait to colour this in later in the video. As a reminder, I will be putting all of the colouring pages I make today as a digital download, so if you wanted to download these for yourself to print and colour in, I have linked them in the description. Next up, I wanted to do this illustration of a butterfly, a ladybird, a rat, an acorn with eyes. I honestly don't have a clue what this thing is because the image quality itself just isn't that great, and obviously it's been drawn on and it's 145 years old. It kind of looks like one of those furry caterpillars, maybe. Now, personally, I love this page, but I literally don't like anything in the picture. Like, I mean, I don't like rats, obviously. Sorry, rat people. I think a lot of people think, butterflies, they're so lovely. No, they're not. They are roaches with wings. They have pretty wings, but that does not trick me, okay? These little menaces are still creepy and crawly. Just like the ladybirds. They're kind of cute, but I mean, if one lands on me, you will absolutely see me flapping my arms around trying to get it off. As a kid, my mum would often ask me to get letters from the post box at the end of the drive when we first moved to America, and I would run down that drive screaming my head off, flapping my arms around because of all the bugs that were buzzing around my head. And yes, I did once call my mum over from her house to my house to kill a spider for me at the ripe old age of 27. Fear factor, do not call me. Thank you. So I started with the easy parts, the mushroom, the butterfly, and the ladybird. And I say this as if they aren't also blobs, but they were relatively easy to figure out what was what. Got the strangely shaped rat, which, what are those? I honestly don't know. That's how the blob looked, but I'm sure that's not how she meant them to look in the original image. I'm very sorry to the original illustrator if I'm messing this up. And I mean, I'm saying this as if she's actually watching, which unfortunately she's not. I started the spider thing. I don't know. He has a bum and a fluffy head, I think, but I gave up on that for now and went over to the acorn, which also gave me a hard time because I was like, is this arms? Is he holding a cup of tea, I think? But is it? Or is it just part of the acorn that looks like arms? Also, I think this ladybird has some sort of old man pipe, like upside down though. I don't know. Again, it was very blurry, so it was hard to figure out. And apparently my camera stopped recording and didn't catch me drawing any of the leaves, but Oh well, I guess that would have been boring anyway. So here is how that turned out. And again, I'll be colouring this in a little bit. Lastly, I decided to do one more colouring page because I love this one. Again, it was really hard to do because it was just so blurry. I worked on her face, which for a first try it's not too bad, but I love this drawing. This umbrella though, it was really pretty. It was really fun. The umbrella itself was very straightforward, even with all of the shading. The dress though, oh, this damn dress. Why did they have so many layers in those days? Just pick one layer. You don't need 16 of them. I also realized that this is the second image I did from Kate Greenaway where the kid was like in a strange object for some reason. I'll be honest though, I completely winged the bottom. Like, other than the chimney, this was practically impossible. I kept zooming in and out to try and figure out what it was supposed to be. Like, I just did what I could and added some leaves and plants over the top. Lots of leaves, squiggly bushes, and I went ahead and printed that as well. So once again, I have all three of these as a digital download on my website in the description. So if you want to pause this video, go and do that. We can colour these together. I recommend, if you want really good paper, taking some out of your sketchbook and then cutting it to like paper size. Now, I'm personally using alcohol markers. I really love these cliffs because they remind me of the Jurassic Coast in England, where I'm from. And I'm not really sure why this kid is in a plastic looking boat in the middle of the ocean by herself. I mean, by her expression and lack of awe, I'm guessing it was an accident. I also felt like her dress just had to be red though. I don't know if it's because maybe someone coloured the dress red before, but it just felt like it needed to be red. And I did try to use varying shades of red to be all fancy, but apparently all of the red markers I own are practically the same shade of red, so it didn't change it. I did want to make her collar like a deep red, but it turned out I didn't have anything darker than what I'd already used, so I just made it like a salmon pink, which kind of blended with her skin, but oh well. Now, I rarely use markers, but I have a newfound love for them lately, and I don't own a lot compared to some other YouTubers, so I really wasn't sure how to colour the mouth. I didn't want her to look like she had red lipstick, but like, I mean, that's what happened. I also decided to give her dark brown hair with like 2010 caramel highlights, you know, just badly grown out roots. I also wanted to make the like boat tub thing green because I felt like it added to that stuck in a plastic tub vibe I was going for. I also thought it really complemented the dress well. I will say I didn't enjoy how much water there was. My blue markers are like 7 years old at this point, so they aren't really doing too well. It felt a bit too blue, but I mean, I didn't know what else to do with it. Keep in mind though, the illustrator did not make this for someone my age 140 years later, so take everything I say with a grain of salt, okay? Sea salt. I will say though, I really loved that this was so charming to not only like redraw but to colour as well. I would really love to see more adult colouring books to be this style. It's definitely way too complex in my opinion for kids compared to what they get these days, but like, I mean, I had fun scribbling all over it. And something tells me it was a messy book if you used watercolour though. I'm not really sure how good the paper would have been back then to handle the watercolour paints, but if anyone ever finds like an original of this, like a garage sale or something, please let me know. I kept it plain and simple, and this is how it turned out in the end. Next up, we have the Bug Creepy Crawly page, and I really love how Alice in Wonderland this is, which is why I really wanted to do it in the first place. I made the mushrooms green and red because I just decided to be boring and make them normal colours. The leaves that you didn't get to see me draw, thanks to the camera, were actually really fun to colour in, so I just used a few varying shades of green to colour these in. Then for some reason I decided to ruin the whole thing by making the butterfly purple and bright pink. To be fair to me though, the cap made the pink seem way more muted, and then it came out and I was like, ugh, what is that? That ain't muted. I guess it gives like Cheshire Cat vibes, sort of, so it fits the Alice theme that I felt this had. I made the acorn brown because, well, I mean, what else can you do with an acorn? I also made the rat brownish black to look like those ones in New York City. I've never seen a New York City rat, but this is what I assume they look like. Terrifying. Then I decided I really needed to colour the ground in because it would just be way too plain without it. You might notice this is actually missing that giant thing in the middle as well. I did make the executive decision to just not draw it at all because it was so difficult to even attempt. And even though it possibly looks like a fluffy caterpillar, now I see it at a smaller, further away distance while I'm editing. I felt executing that over the big blurry pixelated blob was just too risky, so I didn't want to make it look like a fluffy turd. I did feel like this whole thing needed some extra spice though, so I got out an Artex white paint marker and added some of the highlights. Also mostly just for lines, not necessarily just highlights, just a bit of oomph. I really felt that this beige really helped pull it all together as well, but to avoid it looking like skin and more like sand or dirt, I added a few little touches of grass all over, and I think that made me happy. I think that helped. Finished the cream and sugar in the middle, and ta-da! This is how this one came out. This is my least favourite page, but I still like it. Now on to the last colouring page. I love how whimsical this is. I spent a couple minutes deciding if the umbrella should be red or green. Then I ultimately decided it just needed to be red because the bathtub was already green. I'll be honest, in my early days of YouTube, when I bought markers for the first time just to fit in and seem cool like a real YouTube artist, I didn't get it. Like, I didn't understand why people were so obsessed with spending $7 for a marker. I kind of get it now I'm older. Not the $7 a marker, that's extortionate, but the markers, I get it. I could really do with some refills though, because these are quite old. Some of them are obviously newer from subscription boxes over the years, but a lot of these Copics are very old now. So I need some refills and some reds and different colours. So if you have some suggestions for markers that you love that are similar to Copics, let me know. The marker world is still pretty new to me, so I haven't taken much interest in them till now. I love how this umbrella turned out. I think it's perfect in red. I think it would have looked lovely as like an emerald green though, like a real nice green. I made her little pinafore a pale blue. I didn't deliberately make it look like a wool fabric. That was just my dried out marker scratching the paper. I also really wanted to keep her dress white and spotty like a Dalmatian. I felt like it would look a little bit weird, like I hadn't finished it or something, so I just went with a deep blue instead. Then I accidentally gave her a fake tan, but I mean, in my defense, I have like 3 flesh tones that aren't just bright orange or too pink, so I tried. I kept her hat simple because I didn't know if it was lumpy or filled with flowers, so I left it up to interpretation here. How cute is she in her little blue dress? I love this little outfit. Even though I complained about all the layers before, 10 out of 10 would put my own child in this. And I really loved how this felt so English countryside. It just felt too British to be an American colouring book. It screamed British to me. But the publishers of this book, the McLaughlin brothers, were from New York. It was a New York publishing company. So I was like, maybe it's just somewhere in New England. But I looked it up and Kate Greenaway was in fact from England. She was born there and she passed away there. So the Victorian styles and the countryside just made complete sense to me. And now I'm wondering again if those beautiful cliffs were actually part of the Jurassic Coast. If she maybe went there on holiday once and just loved it. It's in southwest England. It's beautiful. So I kept this plain. I kept it simple. I used some rich colours. And in the end, this is how it turned out. Thank you all so much for watching. I really, really hope that you enjoyed it. I just want to say thank you all. I say it every week, but I really do genuinely appreciate that you watch me. The fact that I can do this as a job, the fact that I have my own book that's coming out, it's all thanks to so many of you who watch me, and I can't thank you enough. So thank you so much. Thank you as well to Epson for sponsoring this video today and making this possible as well. And yeah, thank you once again for watching, and I will see you in the next video.